Tired of shows that bark and scream at you? This is the show that speaks to you.
Here's the game plan.
It's the Big E Sports Extravaganza, where we go inside the issues, present a variety of topics, and feature some of the biggest sports guests on the planet. Now, here's the one and only, award-winning Elissa Walker Campbell.
Hey, Elissa Walker Campbell, welcome back to the Big E Sports Show, and we are thrilled to be joined by the voice of the Texas A&M Aggies, Andrew Monaco, as A&M prepares for its first ever college football playoff appearance, and Aggie Land is buzzing. There are so many storylines that we're going to get into, the matchup, the mindset, the momentum of a program that is truly chasing a national championship. Andrew, it's good to have you on the program. Thank you so much for carving out some time.
Well, you are so kind to have me. Thank you.
Okay. Well, when you look at the magnitude of A&M breaking into its first college football playoff, how program defining is this moment in terms of just the national reputation, recruiting, and just a long-term trajectory?
Yeah, it's huge. And as you said, I got excited when you said it's going to be the first time in the college football playoff and they get to host the game. And it's what Mike Elko has done in his second season. In a year where I thought his signature win since he got here was the win at Notre Dame, and that seemed to propel this team throughout this season. You make a great point about all that it affects for Texas A&M. You could see it on signing day, the players who committed early, and really, I think it's a testament to what Mike did in his first season. A lot of these high school recruits were kids who saw what was happening in the first year. They never wavered. And they were all ready to commit. They brought a bunch on as well for next year. And when you get to bring those recruits on campus and experience not just the campus, but also Kyle Field on a Saturday, it really, really helps when it comes to recruiting. And the same thing is the way he went into the transfer portal, and they are impact players in the portal. So now you're asking, am I going to be used the way I want to be used as a transfer player? Yes, you can look at Mario Craver and you can look at KC Concepcion or Will Lee on the back end in defense. I think this is the trajectory that Mike Elko wants. An awful lot was done in that first season for him, and I know the record wasn't what he wanted, and they had missed an opportunity last year to get into that SEC championship. They fumbled that as well. But what a fallback, right, to be able to be in the college football playoff. So as Mike said, they were sad leaving Austin. There were tears leaving Austin after that game, but by the time those buses pulled in to Kyle Field and back into College Station, this is a team that realized that we can play for a national championship, as you said, and that's really exciting. And they got back to work, and they're ready to make this happen.
Andrew, as you reflect on this season and how it has played out, what impresses you the most just about the team's mindset and just this step forward that they have taken?
We shouldn't use the word professionalism in college, but that's how it looks to me. It's the combination of a number of players who came back, and they came back to bet on themselves. They came back because last season was disappointing. And I thought it was the right guys coming back. The experience that came back, so you have your entire offensive line come back. You have a Cassius Howell come back on that D-line, and now he's leading that defensive line. The leadership that has affected this entire program, and I know we hear this word a lot, whether it's standard or whether it's culture, but to me, this is now all the young players know. All they know is how they worked this year. I go back to one of the wins earlier in the season, and Captain Torian York, linebacker, said, we won this game on Wednesday and Thursday. Fans think that games are won on Saturday. It's that preparation. So every young linebacker is watching how Torian York prepares. Film room, practice, how you do that. I think that's infectious in a program. So when you have the right guys coming back for the right reasons, and I'm not naive, that's one of the things you use NIL for. Are you going to be a round NFL pick where you don't want to just get drafted? You want to play in the NFL. Now you have a guy like Trey Zoon who comes back at left tackle, and he's the best blocker in the SEC. He's elevated his status to go into the league. But it means so much for him to come back to Texas A&M. And just the way they prepared and to watch this team get better week to week was really exciting.
Andrew, what I hear you saying when we talk about head coach Mike Elko, it's just been a huge cultural transformation, accountability, the toughness, the attention to detail, right?
Yeah, he uses grind, right? And part of grind is the grit. And the other thing that I love is we all talk about who carries the ball into the end zone, whether it's Marcel Reed or running back Le'Veon Moss or the pass to Casey Concepcion. They have implemented, and this was last year, the men of the 10. So what are the other 10 doing on the field? Is that a receiver who's out blocking for his teammate? Is it a pulling guard? Is it on a pass pro? Is it a running back who picked up a blitzer? Well, now that T-shirt has become coveted, that guys not only want that T-shirt, they want the recognition now for their teammates. So when they go into the film room, you have everybody saying, yeah, we saw that Reuben Owens carried the ball or E.J. Smith carried the ball into the end zone. They're pointing out their teammates saying, he deserves the shirt. Like, you have 11 playing as one on each side of the football. That to me, I'm not saying it guarantees a win, but you can almost guarantee you're not going to lose. But you can guarantee that the team will compete. That's what Mike has done. He is honest without being personal. If you're not playing and you come to him and say, Coach, why am I not playing? His question to you will be, do you want the truth or do you want to hear what you want to hear? And then he'll lay out for you, hey, here's why. Then it becomes up to the player to change that. And he's had some players do that, and it's affected them positively.
We are 1 week away from the high-stakes clash, first round of the college football playoff next Saturday at Kyle Field in College Station, going one-on-one with the voice of the Texas A&M Aggies, and that is Andrew Monaco. And so I've got to ask you this question while you're on the show, because there's been some talk about how this season for A&M, it feels like the convergence of Jimbo Fisher's recruiting foundation and then Mike Elko's culture of discipline. How do you as a broadcaster, how do you balance these storylines when people are talking, they're evaluating, why has A&M taken this massive leap forward?
I don't think it's not coincidence that Jimbo's best years, Mike Elko was his defensive coordinator.
There you go.
And there's a lot of guys. Mike said this when he was hired. He knew an awful lot of the players when he walked into that room, whether on the offense or the defensive side. And I think that helped. He also gets Texas A&M, does Mike, with the family. Ironically, he had to leave and have the success at Duke in order to come back. But it's funny because Mike was talking about some of the facilities that were being built. He said, these are some great facilities. And I had to remind him that he was a part of that in those 4 years that he was here. He was a part of the reason why the team was successful. This was a team that finished number 4 in 2020, and that in that COVID year was just on the outside of the college football playoff. So he was a part of it. And maybe, again, you have different coaches. And Mike instilled in this team, and this was the shame of it in the last 2 years, that a lot of the players that he inherited had to learn how to win. There were a lot of one-score games that A&M was coming up short. They had to learn how to win. Then they started to learn to win those games last year, and they were winning those games this year. And that in growth is also the big key. How do you go out? Mike says this. You have to go out and get all SEC talent at your positions, not just your skill positions. And then you have to have NFL talent if you want to compete in the SEC. And that's what you face every Saturday, is you're going to hear all these names in April in the NFL draft. You have to at least match that to give yourselves a chance. And that's where I think Mike is built for 2025 and beyond when it comes to a front office, if you will. Because, teams are college teams are modeling NFL, your GM, your talent evaluator. Look, you're recruiting your own players every single day so they can stay. Can you get them to stay? Do you have very few players leaving? That's what was interesting. Not a ton of players left, even after the coaching change. Again, I think it speaks to A&M, but it also speaks to who the new head coach was. And I think they like the discipline. More than anything, they like the winning. And what goes into that winning is that discipline that is now in this program.
The voice of the Texas A&M Aggies, Andrew Monaco, is our very special guest on the Big E Sports Show. And so let's look ahead to the big game next weekend. Miami brings to College Station speed, balance, and unpredictability. So what are those pressure points for your Aggies? Talk to me, Andrew.
I'm chuckling because it's almost like another SEC game. It really is.
True.
Just
Okay.
the size of these offensive and defensive lines. And I think their D-line, I think Miami's D-line is elite. I really do, whether it is Bain or Messidor on the edges. And it's funny because every week I interview Mike before our game, our pregame interview, and I always mix in the question, it's going to be a line of scrimmage game, isn't it, Mike? And I think this one is also the experience on both of these teams is really impressive. I don't think you can rattle Carson back. The Aggies are going to try, but he's pretty unrattleable because of the experience. Now, the Aggies will bring pressure. That's what I find, fascinating. I think players love playing in a Mike Elko defense because you bring pressure, and it is aggressive, and it's going to have to be aggressive. Miami's defense, boy, they battle the game within the game. Will the Aggies be able to run the ball? Look, this is an offensive line that says we not only don't want Marcel Reed to get sacked, we don't want him to get hit. But when it comes to the running game, Miami doesn't give up chunk plays. Mm-hmm. They're really good at 3 or 4 yard gains. So I think the running game is going to be at a premium for both of these teams because you don't want them to become one-dimensional. Then you have Malachi Toney in the slot. He's the best true freshman in the country. And then conversely, I like my chances with Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver, who have proven to be game breakers. Like, I think they're so evenly matched. I really do. And then there's a little bit of history between the two. Mike had coached against Mario Cristobal when Mike was at Duke and Miami, and they split those games. And then the last time the Aggies, it was under Jimbo Fisher, but the Aggies had beaten Miami at Kyle Field in a non-conference and then went to South Florida. And I thought Miami dominated Texas A&M in that game. So to me, it really does feel, because of the size and the speed and the athleticism and the game breakers, it feels like another SEC game. Miami has dominated in the ACC and the teams that they were supposed to. And A&M has been used to facing elite defenses. This is just another one. And Miami brings that plus that something about that South Florida speed, isn't there, that they also possess?
Okay, so Miami's got speed and size, but you guys have the home field advantage, and you all are perfect. 7-0 at Kyle Field this season? That's going to be massive.
When the tickets were gone within hours anticipating this one, and the players have admitted you can field. And now you can't depend on that. You still have to make the plays, but it will absolutely be something. It will be an atmosphere unlike other. And there have been a bunch under Mike Elko since he has been here. You constantly after games, it's, this is the 4th largest all time or the 5th or so they keep setting these records. And, as you know, the 12th man feels like they can make a difference. They feel like they do make a difference in the game, and they're going to try to do that. Whether they play this at 11 a.m., 2:30, 6 o'clock, it doesn't matter. They feel that. I think that excitement is going to emanate throughout Kyle Field.
Well, and I got to ask you, teams respond differently to long layoffs. So just maybe what's your thoughts about this Aggie team, how they're going to handle this downtime without losing rhythm or edge? I mean, they've got to be going at it really hard every day, yes?
Yes. So what they did after the loss to Texas and not going to the SEC championship, that was their, I don't want to say their own week. It wasn't like a bye week, but that was very much the mental week. It was also a speed week, a lifting week, but it wasn't going to be practice. Once they found out it was Miami, then they got back to practice on that Monday. So it's 2 weeks of that. So it's going to be a combination of almost like another camp in the beginning, and then you focus on Miami. I am of the belief I want to be as healthy as possible going into the game. And that means Le'Veon Moss will be back for Texas A&M at running back, and that is a huge addition. I would imagine Scooby Williams at linebacker, giving them some more depth, and that's been a real key for the Aggies is the depth. It's one thing to have depth, it's another to have depth and talent. And that's what they have had. Mario Craver's ankle will be better going into this one. I'll take my chances. I'd rather be as healthy as possible going in. And I think this team understands, as we talked earlier, about what it takes to prepare and be prepared for a Saturday, taking care of the body, learning as much as you can. Sometimes that mental break. Here's the other thing. Some of these young guys are now balancing their first finals. They still got to take care of the academic side as well. Then once that's over, once those finals are over, then it's the best world for them. They just get to concentrate on football.
Yeah, student hyphenated athlete. They got to take care of the classroom. So, hey, but listen, talk to me about as far as Moss, with his return, How does that reshape A&M's offensive approach? Just kind of the impact that he would have.
Boy, he's a yard after contact guy. He almost craves that first hit and goes. And, look, he had his season taken away from him last year in the beginning of November at South Carolina and couldn't wait to get back. And he did. And then he had the season, half of it taken away again in an injury once we got into SEC play. But there's just a lot of leadership. Like even when he was out, Ruben Owens, who would take over as the number one back. And again, it's a stable of backs is how they classify themselves. But Ruben said, I can't have Le'Veon be away from this team. I need him around. I need to talk to him. I need what's, in his mind, what he's seeing to help me. But just that leadership of Le'Veon, that if you can't help but follow when you see someone like him. There's a combination of one, he runs so hard, and can he be a difference in running? And it's going to be his first game back. So, again, it's not just plug and play, but hopefully he's able to, be all the way healthy. But then they also have that changeup. Like Ruben Owens brings something very different from E.J. Smith, who brings up something different from Jamarion Morrow, from Amari Daniels. Like that's what this stable does. But he's the lead back. Also, pass protection, really good. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. So in case Miami's taking some things away, I think it's a huge addition to this A&M offense. They have been good. I think Le'Veon can give them that great running game that has been key in the early part of this season.
Okay, you give us an update on Le'Veon, but talk to us about the coordinator changes and the departures. This is a critical time. How will they make those proper adjustments?
I'm thrilled for Colin Klein to get that head coaching job at K-State. He's going back home, if you will, and that's got to be exciting for the Wildcats as well. And Jay Bateman going to Kentucky. They will be with the program through the postseason, and I think that's exciting because you get a chance of, they both said this, we were asking the difference between year one and year two under coordinators or even under Mike Elko, and the responses were from Colin, huge, and from Jay Bateman was gigantic, because everybody was learning the system last year. So even your leaders are still learning how to implement, and then it becomes easier as the year goes on, but everybody's learning at the same time. So I don't want to say they weren't leading. They had to lead in other ways. But when you're asking about the new offense or you're asking about the new defense, everybody now, Torian York understands exactly what Jay Bateman and Mike Elko were doing on defense. And now he can lead because he's got that thorough understanding. I think you saw the development of Marcel Reed is very much tied into understanding Colin Klein and being able to talk that same language. Look, I'm also not naive enough to know Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver make everybody a better quarterback.
Sure.
There is that. But give Marcel a ton of credit, because we talked about, Mike joked and said every time you talked about a dual threat quarterback, it used to be, well, he can't throw. Marcel can throw, and that was always the one thing, the deep ball he can hit. But it's the slant and the yards after the catch. And to give him that time. But now I think he has more of the understanding with Colin of why we want this to happen. And when you understand the why on offense and the defense, I think that really builds an understanding for a player. And then it becomes like the key play at Missouri in that win. Marcel changed to the right play, a little middle screen to Casey Concepcion that he broke, what he saw. Marcel wasn't doing that last year. And in fairness, Marcel was the starter at the end of the year, not all year during that season, or he was the number 2. He understands now everything that goes with QB1. Well, that's what Colin Klein was at Kansas State. And I think they can talk on that different level of how do you handle yourself? You have to be good in practice every single day, not every once in a while, because people are looking at you, and then being surrounded by the talent and utilizing that talent certainly helps. Them sticking around, I think, is big because there's that confidence that you can always call on them. They do have to balance what they're going to have to balance. But Jay has been in this job a long time. Happy for him that he gets a chance to do something at Kentucky. And for Colin Klein, I know he and his family have called College Station home. I think if it wasn't Kansas State, I don't know if he would go. But, when you have a Heisman contender going back to his school, I'm wishing him all the best. But they're gonna leave everything for Texas A&M before they go.
You bet. We are winding down our time. I got to ask you while you're on the program, Andrew. A few weeks ago, the Aggies cemented their future by extending Mike Elko and Trev Alberts. Just talk about that combo, the importance of being in sync and with the head coach and the AD.
Yeah, I think alignment is big in college athletics now going forward. And it's more of, again, such a weird year, right? With all these coaches being fired so early and all of this, and you're dealing with the outside noise. And with Trev losing the president, Mark Welsh, triggered something in his contract as well about a lower buyout. But I joked with Trev, and I joked but serious, how to take an All-American linebacker out of Lincoln to come to College Station says an awful lot about Texas A&M. And he's another one built for 2025 in that it's more than just heading an athletic department. There's got to be business savvy. Savvy's the word that he is. And even though he did not pick Mike Elko as head coach, you can see a lot of similarities between those two. Trev played for Tom Osborne.
He sure did, yeah.
But he had so much respect. He talks about this. He had so much respect for R.C. Slocum, and R.C. was a big part of bringing Mike Elko back to Texas A&M. So to me, it's a lot of things. And what Mike represents, I think Trev represents. And we have to be honest, your football programs have to be good on campus. That is where you are generating all the revenue or almost all the revenue for your program. So that was big. I think it leads to stability. I think it leads to the two of them being on that same page, aligned and going forward together. I think it was a big move. And look, it shuts all the other noise out. Like, you can't say any longer, hey, Mike's up for the Penn State job or Mike's up for this job. But you know what? He's not any longer. He's here at Texas A&M. So you take some of that noise out. And as you know, that can be used by other schools when it comes to recruiting, whether it's true, untrue. They'll use anything to their advantage. Now you are locked in. He's our guy, and this is how we go ahead moving forward.
Yeah, it is countdown to kickoff as we look forward to the first round of the college football playoff next weekend. Kyle Field in College Station as we look forward to Texas A&M as they face the Miami Hurricanes. True pleasure to catch up with the voice of the Texas A&M Aggies, and that is Andrew Monaco. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Good luck.